Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast.
They're playing basketball.
Here's our hosts, Steve Collins, and Bill Flitter.
Welcome to Coaching Youth Hoops. Before we get started, hey, how are you?
Doing awesome.
Before we get started, I'd like to give you a big shout out to our sponsors. First of all, obviously, coachingyouthhoops.com, the one-stop shop for basketball. It's a Swiss Army knife for youth basketball coaches. How about that, Coach? I've never mentioned.
Coach in a box, as someone told me the other day, which I love. Coach in a box, everything you need.
Yeah. We'll keep this G-rated, but there's an SNL thing about something in a box. And then what's our other sponsor, Coach?
The Basketball Play Creator. So if you head over to the basketballplaycreator.com, I discovered this by a Google search. I was looking for something simple. I didn't need anything complicated to create plays and drills and everything. And this, I found this tool and I absolutely fell in love with it because it's simple. It creates playbooks easily, and I can share those playbooks with players. It's everything you need. I've seen a lot of on our Facebook group, even of coaches, handwritten plays down. I'm like, go to the basketballplaycreator.com and just put it all in there. Then you have it forever, and then you can tweak it as you need it, and you can share it out with your players. So
yes, doesn't have to be on a napkin anymore. Sorry, Marty, does not be on a napkin anymore.
Hello, coaches, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Youth Hoops. I'm your host, Coach Bill Flitter. Before we dive into our guest speaker today, Joe C., I want you guys to head on over to coachingyouthhoops.com. It's basically your coach in the box. We provide everything you need to get your season started, practice plans, all the drills that you need, advice, special content in there as well that you don't hear on the podcast or see in our Facebook group. And speaking of Facebook group, if you are on Facebook, follow us there at Coaching Youth Hoops, as well. Just do a quick search. And I do want to do one more shout out. Head over to prosportsequip.com. Use code LEVELUP20 to save on all your sporting goods needs. If you're looking for jerseys, if you're looking for basketball hoops, basically anything you need, Mario will set you up. He absolutely crushed it. He made us some warm-up jerseys for my team, and I do want to do a shout out to him for the awesome work that he did on those warm-up jerseys. So again, prosportsequip.com. Use code LEVELUP20. All right, coaches, we have a special guest today, Coach Joe C. Joe and I have been running around in the same circles. We actually have not met. I know of Joe. I know his dad. Actually, I don't know if you knew that. You had coffee with your dad yesterday, 2 days ago, whatever it was. So I ran into him at the Ultimate Fieldhouse. He was coaching one of the teams, and I'm like, we haven't spoken, so let's grab some coffee. Anyway, Joe is he's a coach now, a dad, former basketball player, college player, right? Did you play in the pros or amateur?
No, I hung him up after college.
Okay. Well, Joe, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on today, and I'm glad you wore your Sports Strong T-shirt as well. I'm representing, actually, my Level Up shirt on today.
There you go. Always Joe, represent.
Yeah, exactly. Joe runs a large AAU program here in the Bay Area, focused on boys and skills training. And, why don't you dive in, Joe, to your past, your playing days, college days, give the listeners a quick overview.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to De La Salle High School. Was a 4-year starter there. Coach Frank Alaco, it was his first year there. He had come over from Northgate. And so he'd won a state title at Northgate and was hoping to, replicate the same success at De La Salle. And I was lucky enough to have him as my coach for 4 years. After that, I got a full scholarship to Oregon State, played there for only 1 year. The whole coaching staff that recruited me, they left and went to New Mexico after my first year.
Oh, wow.
So, I missed California weather. It rained a lot there first year in Corvallis. It actually snowed. I think it was the first time in, 5 to 7 years that it snowed in Oregon. And so, that coupled with the whole coaching staff, new guy coming in, recruiting his own type of guys, ended up transferring and finishing playing at UC Santa Barbara under Bob Williams.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yep.
Now, did you end up winning a state title at De La Salle when you were there?
We did, yeah. So my junior year, we were 31-1, one of those I can't recall.
Yeah.
And yes, we won the state title. We beat Clovis West.
Okay. All right.
1 point in the state title.
Wow. So, and who was on that team with you?
We were really good, really good. We had all 5 starters play D1. So you had myself, you had Charles Brown, who was my backcourt mate. He went to Loyola on a full scholarship. You had AJ Cool. He went to Air Force.
AJ was on that team. Oh, yeah.
Yep. He went to Air Force. You had Chris Schlatter, who, got a scholarship to St. Mary's and then finished playing at Washington State. And the last starter was Connor Famuliner. He walked on at Cal and ended up getting a scholarship. I can't recall if it was his last year or his last 2 years over at Cal under Ben Braun when Braun was a coach there.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're in the Bay Area, those are legends in the Bay Area. So, yeah, I actually coached with AJ, and Frank at De La Salle. So, yeah, awesome. I got to know both of them really well. And if it wasn't for Frank, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I mean, he's the one who really influenced me. When I started coaching in the 3rd grade, I'd bring my teams over. He was more than welcoming, right? With bringing teams to his practices, literally would sit in his practices. I went to all his coaching clinics and, caught the bug. And then Brian, I would meet with Brian Sullivan every year. And we talk basketball, and he says, "Why did you come over to the De La Salle?" And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. Before I asked my wife, exactly knew what I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into. And
Frank Senior, he was around a long time, so he probably one of the winningest coaches in the Bay Area or probably even the state of California, and obviously had a lot of influence and touched a lot of people. So
yeah, absolutely. So, and tell us about Sports Strong.
Yeah, so Sports Strong has been around 20 plus years. My dad started it just as I had finished, playing high school at De La Salle. He was probably one of the, founding fathers. Maybe one of the godfathers of AAU type basketball in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And he ran a successful program for like I said, 20 plus years. And then when COVID happened, he was about to retire and was kind of getting fed up with, what you can and can't do with players and spacing and masks and, all this crazy stuff that was happening during COVID. It was a nonprofit. And so it's not like he could go, hey, I'm going to go try and sell this to somebody. I said, hey, don't just let it fold. I'll take it over and run it. And I've been doing it for 3 years now. And it's been a great 3 years.
Yeah, good for you. That's your dad, we actually were talking about that he has to be one of the first guys in the Bay Area with a team 20 years ago to find anything, right? That's like he did and like he built, right? That's got to be the tip of the iceberg right there, where because about 20 years ago is when things got a little bit more organized as far as basketball programs, and obviously now they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy how much has changed over the years. I mean, when I was playing, it was kind of the rebels and the soldiers. I'm trying to think if there was any really other, local AAU programs. That was kind of it that I can recall. And then obviously, my dad started this, and you had MVP Flight, which he was a part of that too at the same time. But yeah, those are the kind of the core ones back in the day.
So I'm assuming like me and before all that AAU, we just did pickup games and went to the blacktop and school lots and just played. Would that be Absolutely. A fair assessment as far as what kind of how you grew up playing?
Yeah, 100%. It would be you do CYO basketball.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's kind of the it, and that was the late fall, early winter sport. And then once that was over, you'd go play baseball or the next sport. And, I really didn't play year round basketball until probably about 8th grade. And then obviously all through high school.
Yeah. So basketball was your only sport in high school?
I played tennis as well. I was a tennis player.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So, okay, let me get this straight just for all the coaches and parents that are listening. You had multiple sports up till 8th grade.
Yeah.
You played 2 sports in high school.
Yep.
And you still got a Division I scholarship. Is that right?
I did. Yeah.
So you don't have to specialize too early. Is that the?
Times have changed with that, but I kind of did the tennis to maybe take a little bit of a break from basketball, so I didn't feel the burnout.
You still play
tennis?
Yeah.
No, I haven't played. I mean, I haven't played in several years. I actually during COVID got into pickleball.
Oh, pickleball, of course. Yeah.
So I'm a pickleball player now.
There you go. So let's dive into AAU. So it definitely has changed the landscape. It's been under heat. There's positive sides. There's negative sides. Let's first dive into the main benefits you see for kids joining AAU.
Yeah, I mean, there's several benefits of them joining AAU. The first, like I said, when I wasn't around, there wasn't a whole lot of AAU. The first is just all the better players seem to now be playing AAU versus, when I played it, you played the CYO at a young age, and that was kind of it. Or you'd have, maybe a rec city league. So you have the high level of competition because of all the good players that are playing that. And it basically just gives those all athletes the ability to play against the best competition around in the Bay Area or even nationally if you're part of a team that travels and does like a national type schedule. The exposure to college coaches, that's another thing that is huge for AAU. If you're looking to get a possible scholarship or even walk on into college, continue playing in college, AAU gives those athletes the opportunity to get noticed by them. You have the development of skills and the teamwork that AAU can provide for these young athletes. It's a little bit different than when you're playing for your high school team because you don't practice 5 days a week. You're probably in there 2-3 days a week at most for an hour and a half each time. But you can develop the skills and teamwork within the concept of that team. And then lastly, there's personal growth that you can have with AAU. How do you deal with adversity? Dealing with the pressure of games. Being a good teammate. All those things are the benefits that I see coming from the AAU world.
And, so when you speak of AAU, I mean, again, I probably most of the coaches that are listening, but what does that mean to you? Like, what is when someone says, they're joining an AAU team? What, sometimes they use that generically as they're just going to do tournaments, right? But what do you think are, I guess the question really is like, is all AAU the same, so to speak?
No.
Right?
I mean, there's different levels of AAU, right? So even with my program, I've got what we consider AAU, but it's more of a rec developmental type AAU club.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got AAU where, hey, it's a little bit of those players that are going to spend more time, commit maybe year round to the sport, and they're going to go travel around locally. Hey, you're going to play in a couple national possible tournaments, depending on, the skill set and makeup of that particular tournament team. For instance, I'm taking an 8th grade team to Las Vegas, playing in the Bigfoot Hoops this coming weekend.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. So I guess, you have, there's 4th grade teams traveling to Vegas and Chicago and, some of the bigger tournaments from even just, you look at our area, Bay Area, right? That's where I kind of get hung up, where it's like, should 4th graders be traveling to Chicago, right? And at what age is really age appropriate, and kind of the negatives of AAU, right? Are we, we play basketball. It's supposed to be fun and entertaining. And, like we said, when we started this conversation, you and I would just get a bunch of buddies together, go play. Those kind of days are over, where people just, I don't see that happening as much anymore. So everything is structured. They have coaches, trainers, everything else. I mean, I can't tell you how many phone calls I get. I have basically ends up being a 1st or 2nd grader, and, they're really interested in basketball. My response is always, go out in the backyard and play with them.
Yeah.
Dribble a ball, play. I know other trainers will take that business, but I'm just like, they're your kids, go play. Just go play. So anyway, getting to the point of the question, which is, let's talk about like the I don't know, the other side, the dark side, maybe that's too harsh, but you know where I'm going with that, kind of the bad rap that AAU does get. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to your point, hey, should 4th graders be, traveling across the country and playing tournaments? I definitely see the positives of that being, hey, you get to expose yourself to a whole nother world. A lot of times you're in this little bubble of your school or your city or even the Bay Area, and you're like, oh, hey, I'm one of the best guys in the Bay Area. And then you go to some of these tournaments, and it's a huge eye-awakening experience for some of these kids.
Yeah.
Where like, whoa, there's a lot of people in this world in the United States, and all of them are playing basketball at a young age, and there's really, really good players, and not only the players, but even some of these teams are, they play extremely well together because they're talented. They've been playing together for a long time. They've been training.
It's amazing. You see some of these young teams like 4th and 5th grade individual players, even 3rd, where you're like, there's no way that kid's a 3rd grader.
Oh,
right?
It's insane.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And then there are some of the things where I'm like, okay, does a 4th grade team really need to be going to these places? I see the positive and negatives of both. They have rankings now, national rankings for, I think it might be 3rd grade is the lowest I've seen them, but it's like you're ranking these kids, which, hey, it's all good for the, the Instagram and the Facebook and the TikTok or what have you. But again, you might have this stud kid that's so much, he's ranked higher than all these kids because he's so much bigger than everybody at that age. Right.
Yeah.
And more than likely that person will get caught up in size and height and speed and all that stuff. And, it can hurt the kid too. Hey, they're getting all this pub and all of a sudden they're not good anymore. And again, it's, when I was playing, so I actually played with LeBron James when he was going to be a sophomore in high school and I was going to be a senior. I played with him on the Soldiers. And I remember, there was the story of Lenny Cook. I think there's a documentary out on him.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Lenny Cook, he's the guy.
Yeah.
And then LeBron James goes and, cooks him at the ABCD camp, which, I also played at that camp as well. But, hey, and then all of a sudden, all the hype, he was still probably hyped up a little bit, but not this, hey, he's the best player. Somebody else surpassed him. And then he ended up, I think he kind of took a turn for the worse. I think he's turned his life around since then. But again, you're putting all these expectations on these players because of the early rankings, and they're so young, so immature, and they don't know how to handle that stuff. But yeah, back to your point about, hey, yes, can there be burnout, right? Hey, you're traveling, you're doing all this stuff, you're training, all this stuff. And yeah, maybe a kid does lose the love of the game because it's just so much over and over and over. And they're not having fun anymore. They feel it's more of a job.
You have young boys who are now playing, right? What age are they?
So my oldest is going to be a freshman at De La Salle this year.
He is that?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
And my youngest is going to be a fifth grader.
Okay. So let's talk about your freshman. So is he going to be, he's a basketball player?
Yep.
So did you do anything different with him? You've been through the whole process, right?
Yep.
What kind of parent were you? Because you're a coach too, so you're walking that fine line, right?
Yeah. Well,
so tell me about that process with your own kids, coaching your own kids.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So when I first, he was growing up, and I wasn't really involved in any basketball sports, anything like that. Again, I had played at a very high level. I could have gone and played professionally overseas if I wanted to. I was just done with basketball. I'd done it again for probably 9-10 years in a row, where you're going 6-7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I just, hey, I wasn't going to get rich at it. And I was just, hey, I'm done. And I didn't really want to get into the coaching business, just because I was like, hey, I just want to be a dad. I just want to watch my kid there. I want to encourage him. I don't want to, have him feel pressured to play well because I'm the coach and all that stuff. But anyways, I got into it. And again, he played all sports up until sixth grade was the last year. He had done, flag football, baseball, basketball. Those were, and a little bit of golf every now and then. And he had found the love for basketball himself. He started playing on his own. And when he was in sixth grade, that's kind of when COVID had come around. And so, hey, he's out. He started working on his game a ton and wanting to do that sort of thing. And, I just said, hey, why don't you don't need to do all this stuff right now at such a young age, just from past experience and he really loves it and is just pushing himself towards it. So I think going back to that AAU stuff, hey, if it's in the kid and they want it, why not push them towards specializing in a sport that they really love?
Is he at the point where he can beat you?
No, not yet. Not yet. No, not if I'm going 100%, it's hard for him to beat me. It takes me a while to get warmed up though. So.
I would imagine, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Once I'm warm, he can't beat me. So.
What role do coaches play in all of this too? There's different styles of coaching, of course, right? And we've seen it all, right? And you've seen it all in the gyms and probably experienced a lot of it, right? So talk to me about where coaching was maybe when you were growing up, and do you see it changing now? And if so, how? And what do we need to do if it's still not to the point of where it should be?
Yeah, no, I think when you come across the good coaches, there's not a whole lot of difference between now and when I was playing.
Well, what's a good coach? Define that? What do you see as a good coach?
Yeah, great question. So I believe a great coach is someone that's going to provide positive instruction and feedback to those players. They're going to set goals and expectations. They're going to create a positive playing environment for everybody. And they're going to be role models for everyone on the team. But I feel like because there's a ton of AAU programs that maybe I didn't know about, because I wasn't in the business, but it just maybe more popped up since COVID. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's just so many that there's no way that you're going to be able to find all these great coaches, because there's just so many teams and stuff out there. But yeah, so with that said, because there's so many, there's a lot of coaches that don't know a whole lot. They're just there to be there. They're kind of babysitting because you have a wide range of kids playing the sport. Some parents are just pushing their kids into the sport because they want babysitting. Others are there because they want really good coaching. So, it's just a toss up out there in the AAU world.
Well, and dive into that, because I know you have experience in that, because I just had this, and I know I just had this experience, and it comes up a lot with other coaches, where a parent is doing the pushing, right? And a parent expectations and a parent's lens of their player is way above your professional trained eye. And that there's ends up a lot of times being a conflict. And I see a lot of times in those cases, the pain with the kids on their faces. They don't verbalize it a lot of times, but you can see it, right? They're trying and there's a lot of effort, but then they feel a lot of anxiety. So how do you deal with that as a coach? Because I know every coach probably runs into that at some time, if not every year they're coaching.
Yeah, I mean, parents, guardians, whoever it may be in their
right.
Person's, the player's, life. I think they play a critical role in supporting, the kid throughout their, whether it's youth basketball, high school basketball, AAU, but whatever it may be. They're the ones that need to be there supporting and encouraging the kids. They hopefully they're attending all, a lot of the games. Any of my parents can attend my practices to see how they're performing at the practices as well. They should help set, maybe get with the coach and the player and maybe help set goals for that kid, whether it's short term, such as, hey, make the starting lineup, or long term, hey, being a varsity basketball starter. They just need to be there for those kids to do that. Hey, give them opportunity for skill development. Are you available to take them just to the park and go shoot and play? Or, hey, can you afford to enroll them in a basketball camp? The parents just need to help with all that stuff. Teach them the importance of being a good sport. Manage their time, being a good role model for them. My thing with any parent complaints I've ever had, it's like, hey, come to the practices, watch your son play. I'm not picking on him for any particular reason. This is what I'm seeing. This is what he needs to do better, and just having that open line of communication between both parent and player. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really important too, is that definitely that communication. It's not like, these programs are inexpensive, right? So along with that cost is an expectation a lot of times, right? And the good parents, they get it, right? They know where their son or daughter is at, right? And, they do it because their athlete loves the game. And where the conflict comes in, though, is when the expectations of the player or the parents or the guardians are higher than where the player is at. So, you mentioned, hey, communicate with the parents, work with the parents, but as a coach, trying to help that individual, right? I always think and maybe this gets into the question of the mental side of the game, right? How do you, as a coach, how can you help kids on the mental side of the game? And let's take two instances, just in general, but then also that specific player where you see, hey, they're trying, they're putting in the effort, and the parents are yelling in the stands, you should have made that layup, right? And then, they're sulking on the way back and nervous, so they're just passing the ball, and the parent, why are you passing the ball? You had a wide open shot, right? And I had someone come to me the other day who was just hanging around me after the game, and I thought she wanted to talk to me. And then she said, and I said, oh, did you want something? She goes, no, I'm just delaying because I don't want to get in the car.
Oh, geez.
Right. So, how do we deal with that situation from a coach's perspective? What tips do you have for other coaches?
Yeah, I mean, example I can give of that, I mean, just with my own son, right? I feel like all, even when I play, you feel like every shot's supposed to go in, right? And you look at the greatest shooter in the world, Steph Curry. What percent does he make? 40, 44, 45% of the shots, right?
Yeah.
And he's the greatest ever to ever do it. And the one thing that I always preach with my son, that I also do with the players too, is like, I don't care if you make your shot or not. Obviously, yes, I want the ball to go in. It feels better when the ball is going in.
Right. Yeah.
As long as you are playing your best and hardest and playing for and with your teammates, that's all that matters. You're going to get better as long as you're doing those things. If you're going in and you're going in the gym and you're putting the work in the shots, your shot's eventually going to go in. Okay. Mm-hmm. Don't let that stuff affect the rest of your game, because your game, how you're acting on the court, that's going to rub off on the rest of your team. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also depends kind of the level of that player. My son's always been kind of more the leader, one of the better players on each of the teams that he's played on. And when you're that person and you're showing those things on the court, it affects everybody. So going back to that with, hey, that parent, you got to pull that kid to the side and go, look, Johnny or Joe or whatever, hey, you're going to miss things are going to happen. You're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Hey, go make up for it on the defensive end, right? Go make a play, try hard, continue to be a good teammate. Right. And then, hey, if you need to have that conversation with that person's parent, because they're over, out of bounds or whatever, then you have that as a coach.
Yeah. One of the things I learned the other day, I had Graham Beckert from the Sacramento Kings. He's their skills trainer. And I interviewed him, and what he teaches players is, he calls it just next play speed, right? Next play. So we used to say next play, but then he added the speed part of it. And I really liked that, because it's like, okay, get there quickly. Like, this play's done. You can't change it. You missed a shot. Now don't miss the defensive stop on the other end because you're feeling sorry for yourself, right? Get there really quickly. So in my games, I started using that, next play speed, right? It's okay. You're going to miss it. Right. Yep. Or something's going to happen. I had a conversation last night that was really interesting with my team. We, as the rec league around here, the summer season's coming to the end, playoffs are this coming weekend. Yep. And so we sat down and we did a debrief last night. These are 7th and 8th grade girls. And I asked them about mistakes and how they felt. And I said, a lot of times I thought you guys were you were holding back, or you were apprehensive. And one of the things they said is they were, if they did a mistake, they didn't want to feel embarrassed, right? And I said, well, who's making you feel that way? And one girl said, my siblings, I have older siblings that play, and you're going to laugh at me because I just missed that wide open layup. And other ones are like, they said it doesn't matter who's ever in the stands, or right, that, or, I don't want to let my teammates down. And they said it, and I asked them, well, is it me? Do I put pressure on you? Like, thank goodness. They said, no. It's like, no, it's not you at all. It's internal pressure that we put on ourselves, and this feeling of being embarrassed because we made a mistake, right? Now, we really preach it's okay to make a mistake. You're here to learn. You're going to make a mistake, right? I don't expect to be perfect. So how do you help, as a coach, how do you help your players deal with mistakes in game? Because it's got to be quick, right? And then just as your practice at your practices. What were some tips maybe you have there?
Yeah, I mean, in game, hopefully they're doing something right in the game. Right?
Oh, right, yeah.
So, hey, you talk to them about, whether it's a free throw, you call them over to the sideline, whether you sub them out, you talk to them there. This is during in game, right? And you go, hey, what happened with the mistake they made or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then you kind of highlight it with, hey, well, here's what you did really well. So, hey, continue to focus, continue to try hard, and we'll correct these mistakes. May not be this game, but hey, next practice, here's what we're going to work on that I think will help improve these mistakes that you made during the game. And practice, it's you got to stop. You got to, usually it's not one person that's always making the same mistake, right? It's usually everyone on the team. So you got to stop the practice. Whether perfect example is this is, one of my teams was, all turning the ball over. We were playing this again. This is fourth grade. You're talking about, hey, is it too much to travel to Chicago as a fourth grader? We're playing a nationally ranked, they're top 5 in the country team.
Wow.
And they're good. They're phenomenal. We lost by 40. I was actually somewhat proud of the 40-point loss.
4-0?
4-0, yes.
You lost by 40 points against this team. Wow.
Yeah.
That's not a put down on you. It's like that's how good that fourth grade team was.
Yeah. And this is a 40-minute running clock too. Right. So they're
they're scoring.
Again, the big difference too, a lot of times in the AAU world is versus a CYO or some of these other leagues.
Yeah.
There's no press, right? And some of these coaches, boom, they're just going to continue. They're up 20, 30, 40, and they're just going to continue to bring that pressure, which part of it is good, right? Because your kids need to be able to get better at it. But again, at the same point, it's like, all right, are you going to demoralize these kids
exactly
by running the score up? But anyways, so my whole team just turnover after turnover because they're just pressing us and they're fast and they're quick and they're strong and boom, steal layup, right? So hey, the next practice wasn't just one person, right? So we're going 1-on-2, try to get to half court, right? And you've got to dribble up the sideline. As soon as that trap comes, you've got to retreat dribble a couple times. Crossover, keep your head up. Who's open, right? And so we practiced that for 20 minutes, right? To hopefully, and we started implementing that, not 20 minutes every practice because you have limited time, but hey, every practice we started doing it maybe 20 instead of 20 minutes, you're doing that 10 minutes. And they're getting better at it. You bring it down to maybe 5 minutes and you do that. That's how I would implement those mistakes in practice, is just coming up with a drill that will hopefully get that individual or that team better and make those mistakes a lot less.
Yeah, I'm with you on the whole pressure thing. There should, at these tournaments, the tournament director should put a limit on it. Like, you're up 20. And maybe, especially in the younger grades, right? Back off the press. You're going to clear. It doesn't help either side, in my opinion. It makes, I think, the kids feel bad to lose by 40. And does it really? We just whooped up on a team by 40. I mean, sure, bragging rights.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's my biggest thing about AAU and those types of things. It's like, this is what I can't. This is where I have an issue. I'll tell you where the issue is. It really is. We're adults. We set the rules, and we think that's okay. And now, I'm not a trophy for every kid by far. I'm like the opposite of that. It's like, but there's a point of just hammering someone where they don't want to play. There was a team and I run a high school league here, right, for girls, and there's a team that got beat pretty bad. This is a summer league team, and it's everybody plays everybody in the Bay Area, right? We all know who each other are. Yep. They bragged about it, and the girls on the other team, they were like, "We're not playing this year." And it was one of those 40, 50 point losses, pressure, right? So we changed the rules this year. It's just like, look, we're here to learn. The summer's here to learn. This is not AAU. Anyway. So it's just like, that happens at every level.
Yeah.
High school and down. So
yeah. And then quick, just one more thing on that. Hey, I do, that the press thing, going back to that.
Yeah.
I do think it kind of also depends on the team that you have. So for instance, we lost by 40, they were pressing, but my team was, according to some websites, was ranked top 25 on the West Coast.
Okay.
And so it's a good team, right?
Yeah.
Where they're mostly kind of year-round, almost basketball players at a very young age, and they're pretty good, right? So I like to see it, number one, because hey, those guys, hey, you want to be good at basketball? Hey, this is good basketball right here.
Yeah.
If you want to, you think you're good, but this is good.
Puffing their chest at ranked number 25, right? And they're like you said earlier, it's like, okay, there's there's 1 through 5, right?
Yeah. But again, and then if you have a team that's more of like a seasonal type player or whatever, and a team's, and they're not very, it's just like that. That's no fun at all. But as a coach, you're trying to figure out, okay, who do I need to put where to not have this atrocity and all these turnovers in the backcourt, and you're trying to pump you still got to stay motivated and pump your team up.
Right.
But that's all I had left on that.
Well, it's a good life lesson too, right? As we should be teaching, right? Yeah. And Frank Alaco Sr. was really good about the correlation between life and basketball, right? He was a master at drawing those correlations, and I think that sports can help produce leaders, how to come out of adversity, how to work with a team, etc. So, again, losing by 40, you think you're really good, and it's like, nope, somebody's a little bit better than you, right? Yeah. So get back in the lab, right? Let's talk about. I have a couple questions, very specific questions. There's always a lot of questions on our Facebook group about the best offense, the how to beat a zone. As you can imagine, right? There's numerous kinds of offenses, multiple ways to beat a zone, multiple zones to run, multiple press breaks, multiple presses. It's always what's the best. How would you just generally address those questions? You have several teams, you have an organization. What's your philosophy and thinking on the best to run at? Maybe it's different for age group, but I'm just wondering, generally, what's your feedback on that?
All right, coach, interrupt you and be in your ear, but make sure you go over. Remember, prices are going up very quickly before the end of the month, and you're going to want to make sure you join Coaching Youth Hoops right now before prices almost double. And what else, Coach?
Hey, September 13th, we are launching the Coaching Youth Hoops Masterclass. So go sign up over at Coaching Youth Hoops, masterclass.com. We're going to walk you through step-by-step on season planning, and you are going to be a confident coach going into this season.
Yes.
Yeah, it's dependent on the skill level and the type of players you have, right? If you've got really no guy that's that good of a post player, hey, we should go 5 out. If you've got a dominant big guy, you probably want to get a guy in the post, 4 out, 1 in. There is no, one size fits all offense or one that's better than the other. All through my levels of playing, I played everything you can imagine, right? From instant type stuff to 4 out, 1 in, 5 out. Sometimes we did 3 out, 2 in, just kind of depend on the personnel and even the team you're playing. But the key is to kind of have a base of everything for a program like myself.
Yeah.
Where, we've got, at the height, 26, 27, 28 teams. You want to kind of have a base of what you want each of your coaches to run, and then, give the coaches a little bit of autonomy to do what they see as best for this team. That way, if one player has a different coach, they're kind of running something similar. They kind of know the base, but let the coaches be able to tweak it themselves.
Yeah. And when you say a base, just to be clear, are you talking like a base offense? Okay, we believe in, I don't know if this is true or not, but like a 5 out. And that's what we're going to run. Okay. And then tweak it from there. If like, we got a dominant post player on this team, so maybe we go 4 out, 1 in, but the basic principles still apply with maybe that tweak of the 1 in a little bit.
Yep.
Is that kind of the general? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. And talk to me about, so you have, 20 some teams. First off, how long are your practices usually? Hour and a half?
Yeah, again, it depends on the team, right? So if you're more of a rec development team, you're going an hour. Some of my tournament teams, they go an hour and a half. Everybody's going twice.
2 days a week?
Yep.
Twice a week. Okay.
I wish I was able to get more time with the players, and there's just not enough gym time. There's not enough coaches. It's crazy out there.
You'd never see your family.
Yeah. but I always tell this to every kid and parent that's out there. If all you're doing is you're doing practice with us, you'll get better, but you're going to get behind by all these other players they've either got a personal trainer or they're going out and playing on their own. A lot of these kids are playing for, 2, 3, 4 AAU teams, right? So they're probably practicing, twice a week with 2 teams.
Yeah.
And then guest appearing in tournaments on weekends. So
right. Talk to me though about, so you have, let's break this down then. You have a rec team, CYO, or like you said, with your organization, you have kind of 2 levels. Walk me through that hour to an hour and a half practice plan for that rec team.
Yeah, the practice plans are very similar between the rec team and the tournament team.
Mm-hmm.
You can just do a little bit more with the tournament team just because they're typically more of a year-round type player.
Yeah.
And so you can evolve offenses and defenses, but with the rec team, because a lot of them are seasonal and you may only see them, 1 of the 4 seasons or 2 of the 4 seasons, you can't get as elaborate with some of the stuff, and their skill set isn't there. But so the first 15 to 20 minutes of those rec practices are all skill development stuff. So it's I have a bunch of weighted basketballs. We do a lot of weighted basketball dribbling stuff. We do some one-on-one type move stuff, and as well as some shooting technique and form.
And I'm sorry, how long is that first part, the fundamental part, did you say?
15 to 20 minutes.
15 to 20 minutes. And that's when you're talking like a third, you said?
A third of the practice. So they've got a basketball in their hand for 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Every
practice. The next, I kind of evolve it. We do some 3-on-3 stuff. We do, then that's going to be for 10 minutes. Then we do some 4-on-4 stuff. And then we go to 5-on-5 stuff. And each of those is about 10 minutes long. We may throw in a fun, Olympic drill or something like that into the practice. But, the problem is if you're just trying to go 5-on-5 or whatever, the whole practice, and you've got, 10 kids out there, 12, I don't know how many, most programs have, but players only going to touch the ball if you do, a lot of 5-on-5 stuff, very limited. I want these kids to get better. I want them to have fun. I want them to learn about the game. And the only way to do that is getting a ball in their hand as much as possible. So again, 20 minutes, straight ball in their hand the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you go 3-on-3. So you're going to touch the ball a lot more than you are 5-on-5. Yeah. And then you're going to touch the ball a little bit less in the 4-on-4 and a little bit less on the 5-on-5. But at least you've got you've got the ball in your hand, and you're learning some stuff and spacing, and especially at the younger ages, that's huge, because when I've got 1st, 2nd graders in my program.
Oh wow!
Those 1st, 2nd, there's usually one kid that's really good, and he'll just dominate the ball in the practice the whole time, right?
Right.
Because kids look for him like, oh, he's going to score, and kids want to win, right? They quickly know who that better player is, and that better player also is running towards the ball trying to catch it. And so again, when you got 3-on-3 in the 4, just they're touching the ball more than they are in the 5-on-5.
So let me get this straight. So you do about 15 to 20 minutes. Let's just call it 20 minutes of just they're handling the ball fundamentals, and then the rest of the 40 minutes an hour practice is playing.
30
4 and 4.
About 30 to 40 minutes. Yep.
Yeah. So during that, and this is really important because I think a lot of coaches struggle with this, during that 30 to 40 minutes. So, okay, I just I'm a CYO coach. Let's say I'm a rec coach, whatever. Well, Joe, I got to put in my press break and my inbounds plays and my offense and then defense. Are you just letting them play, or are you, do you, like you said, if it's a 5-out offense, you got to teach them that. So kind of like get into the details of how you train that. Practice.
Yeah. Great question. So again, you're instructing them the whole time, right? You're not just letting them play, open gym style. So when you go to the 3-on-3, you're working on closing out. You're working on your man defense because you can't play, I guess you could try a zone with 3 guys, but you're working on your man defense.
Right.
And you're working on positioning based on the offense that you're running. Okay. So it's not just a free for all where they can go wherever they want on the court.
Yeah.
Got them spaced out where you'd want them on offense. So we'll either run a 5 out or we'll run a 4 out, 1 in. If I'm going 4 out, 1 in, a lot of times I'll only use half the court because I got, 2 guards up top and 1 in the corner. And so, hey, you've got to work on this half of the court. Right. And so that's part of the offense that you're implementing, at least in my practice, what I'm doing. Then when I go 4 on 4, I've got everything but the post guy, but you're still in your offensive formation minus the post guy. And so you're working on what you would do minus the post guy. And then when you add the 5 on 5 post guy, now you're running your offense what you would, but everything is building up to that 5 on 5 on the offensive end.
Okay.
Now on the defensive end, most of my practice is spent man to man. All these are man to man. You're teaching the fundamentals, whether it's 3 on 3, 4 on 4. It's all the same. Help side, pressure the ball. Hey, deny the guy the ball when he's picked up his dribble. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And there is, I would say 5 to 10 minutes or so where you're going to work on an out of bounds play. But once everybody knows that out of bounds play, this is the beginning of the season, you're putting that in. You put 1 or 2 in at most, especially for the rec kids, right? At the younger age, you're only putting in 1 out of bounds play. They can only, my first and second grade, if you put 1 in and you spent, an hour on it every practice, someone's bound to mess up in the game.
Exactly.
But so that's kind of what a practice would look like. And then you're going to spend the 5 to 10 minutes. Yes. Depending again, the rec developmental teams, most of those kids aren't pressing. Most teams aren't pressing in the rec developmental leagues, just because again, it's more rec. And if you're really good, most of those really good kids are playing tournament. You're going to have a couple teams that do it, and a couple of my teams for sure press. And that extra 5 to 10 minutes, you work on that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And then what about, again, getting into these nuances of a zone offense, right? So somebody's running zone against you, right? You're practicing your man-to-man and how to play against man-to-man. Then someone, throws a wrench in there and they're running a 2-3 zone.
Yep.
Right. What about all of those kind of just nuances, a zone inbound, right? Zone defense on the inbound play, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't matter if you have man-to-man because, you still can run your man-to-man play against that, or a zone, which most of them are press, right? A 1-2-2, a 2-2-1, whatever it might be.
Yep. Yeah. No. Again, a lot of zone, especially on the defense, zone and man, when you're on the defensive side of the ball, have very similar. Like they're very similar. You could play a man-to-man, and it's just a matchup zone in an essence, right? They have the same fundamentals. Hey, if the ball's in your area, you're guarding the ball. If it's not, you're jumping to help side. You're covering your teammates' weak area. And so the zone offense, we put it in very quickly. It's very simple. And you have to have just something to combat the teams that run zone. And so, we implement all that throughout the practices. You play a lot, whether it's my rec teams playing in league or you're playing in a tournament, you run into the same teams, and you can kind of that week go, hey, all right, I know I'm playing XYZ. They're going to run a 2-3 zone on us. Let's just review our 2-3 zone for 10, 15 minutes, right? Instead of maybe going 5 on 5 man, you go, hey, we're going to spend that time working against a 2-3 zone because we know this team is going to be playing that against us.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Because those detailed questions always come up in the Facebook group. Yeah. And the practice plan is, you want to get as much done, as much fundamentals as you can in those practices. So I appreciate you taking the time diving into that. The other big question, and I think I already know your answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, that always comes up is, I hate zone, and zone should be, out of the game, in the youth level. Or why? There's always two counters to that. Where do you fall in the zone at the youth level? Should we do it? Should we have it? Should we keep it? Should it be gone? What's your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I say, some of my teams run zone, some of them run man. We do a mix of both. I think kids should learn how to play both, because more than likely they're going to be playing at some point in their life, whether it's they play it for a different AAU program that they decide they want to go to, whether it's their high school. Most of the time they're going to play zone. Very few kids are going to make it to the NBA where it's 99.9% man. They do a few zones every now and then. I think the Warriors were running zone against who were they? Who was it they were playing? I remember they were running zone, maybe against the Lakers, because they couldn't stop. Anthony, they were doing something, but they were running zone. But yeah, I definitely think it's good to learn and either play or play against both man and zone.
And so one of the arguments against zone at like third, fourth, and maybe fifth, and maybe boys and girls are slightly different but not much, is, well, third grade, you can't shoot from the outside.
Yep.
Right. So let's just have them play and be able to score and have fun. And that's always kind of the argument of not doing zone. So
I agree with you on that. Again, I had a first, second grade, and it was mostly first graders playing, and they played up in the league, and they're playing against second graders, and we played probably man 80% of the time, and occasionally we got to go to a 2-3 zone to slow the game down a little bit, and personnel you have in there, and we'd go against teams that were, again, a year older than us, and they're playing zone against us. Yeah. The one thing that I do like when teams zone us is you got to pass the ball. You got to move the ball around. Yeah. And I tell all my guys, every time you catch the ball, the first thing you should do is shoot the ball. Am I open? Is this a good shot for me? And I want all my guys to shoot the ball. Yeah. Second thing I tell them on the offensive end is pass the ball. Third thing I tell them is, all right, your shot's not open. Teammate's not open. Now dribble the ball. Problem is when everybody goes man to man, everybody thinks they can beat the man one because they watch, whether it's highlights on, Ball is Live, or any of the stuff, or the NBA highlights, ESPN. What do they see? They see Kyrie Irving doing all this fancy stuff, right? And so when teams go zone and my guys start trying to dribble against the zone and they're turning it over, and I have to call a timeout and go, look, guys, I told you got to first look for your shot, second pass. I go, they're in a zone. You are not skilled enough at this point, first, second, third, whatever grade it is, to dribble by 5 guys. You guys got to share the ball as a team, and that's how you beat the zone. Yeah. And so for me, I do like when teams zone us, because again, passing is a big part of my belief.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good. That's good, because then they're getting those fundamentals too, and it's a good argument to.
Yeah, there's no really right or wrong reason or answer, I should say, but that's my belief on that.
Well, last question for you then, unless you have any, if you want to add anything or any final notes or thoughts. But okay, let's talk about your magic wand situation. You've grown up in an era where we played pickup basketball. You went on to play in high school. You went on to play in college at a very high level. If you had, and maybe that's great, and maybe today you think is great as well, and we often compare our time versus today, and it just changes. But what's your magic wand situation? If you could just have, you have complete, you can change everything about youth basketball today. Are there a couple things that you would change in the landscape of things?
Probably the main thing that I would change is you have all these, 2-day tournaments, 3-day tournaments, if it's a holiday weekend, right? So you play anywhere between 3 to 5 games, and there's a champion after those, those games are played. And then the next weekend you go and you play in a different tournament, and then there's, a different champion or maybe the same champion. I'd love to see somehow, almost like whether you do it for a season, fall, winter, whatever it may be, or you do a whole year-round thing, almost like a league type thing where you're playing everybody, and there's actually a champion versus, hey, I just played a 3-game tournament. We're the champions of such and such tournament. Yay, hey, congrats. Versus,
that's interesting. Yeah,
actually, anybody who wants to really compete and find out who the best is, you enter, for 3 or 4 months, you're playing every possible team, and maybe after the first 3 tournaments, the top half advance to the final tournament for the champion based on record and that sort of thing. That would be probably the thing that I see is just, it's like there's tournament versus an actual,
Yeah. So it's interesting because, I guess what it is you won that tournament. You're the best for that tournament, but the quote unquote better teams just didn't go to that tournament. Right. Right. Yeah. So what's the judge? You're judging yourself maybe against, call it, talent that's not where you're at. Right.
Yeah.
Better or worse. So that's a good point. Any final thoughts you want to add or tips you want to give to coaches?
Yeah. I do think basketball has come a long way since I played. Again, these kids are so skilled compared to, again, when I was playing, just because they have so much more access to, whether it's trainers, whether it's all these different AAU clubs and the year-round stuff that they have at such a young age, they're so much more skilled. But I do feel, in watching over the last 3 years, the youth basketball, AAU type stuff, they don't compete hard. And they don't compete hard because they are playing a ton of games, right?
Yeah.
Hey, when I played one, this was, when I was a youth before high school, 1 game a week during CYO, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Yeah.
So I had to personally live if I won or lost, I had a whole week to sit on that. These kids, they can lose a game and they got a game in an hour.
Yeah.
Right. They lost that one. Hey, they got a game tomorrow. Oh, you lose that one? Oh, no problem. You got a game next weekend. Right. They do play a lot of basketball, and I just don't think they compete as hard as you and I probably competed.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because there just wasn't as much opportunity. You had to make it count when we were playing.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Even, like Coach CYO too, when you lost as a coach, you're like, I got a whole week to like hit myself. Oh, why didn't I do this and beat myself up? Right. Because your competitive juices get going too. So no, that's a really good point. Coach, thank you. That was awesome.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. And look forward to seeing how your Sports Strong teams do down the road. And how can coaches find you if they have any questions?
Yeah, it's sportstrong.com, www.sportstrong.com. My email and my cell phone info are on there. So
perfect. All right, Coach. Thank you. Appreciate your time. And coaches out there, go over to Coaching Youth Hoops and get all your coaching needs right there. All right, till next time. We'll see you soon. Take care, Joe.
Thanks.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
If your brain is at full capacity with to-dos, birthdays, and dinner plans, meet Skylight Calendar. It syncs your entire family's schedule onto a sleek digital display, so you focus on important things like where you left your coffee. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/talk. Go to skylightcal.com/talk for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/talk.